And could you please tell us a bit about Sargent's tour to Germany? In your book, you mentioned that when Sargent performed with the BBC's orchestra in Dusseldorf in 1958, and a German critic described him as master of the art. Uh, why did he enjoy such high critical acclaim among the German experts?
I think that by and large, Sargent was highly regarded outside of Britain, kind of more generally. That particularly with choral works. I mean, you mentioned that touring with the BBC orchestra. He also often toured with the Huddersfield Choral Society, which at that time was widely seen as one of the best orchestras in the world. And those occasions, tours to Berlin and Vienna and kind of around Germany, were kind of real highlights of the cultural year. So I think that he was admired particularly for those kind of choral works, but also when the BBC Symphony Orchestra went abroad by the late 1950s. He'd been with the orchestra for many years. There had been changes in personnel. There was a general sense that the standard of the orchestra had improved immeasurably. I mean, ironically, when he effectively gets fired by the BBC's concert orchestra at the end of the 50s, it's at a time when the orchestra standing is as high as it had been, arguably, since before the Second World War, and going back to the 30s when it was so generally well regarded. I think as well that a lot of it is that Sargent would very often tour with English music. And English music was not that widely played in Germany. The famous jibe before the First World War was a German jibe, that England was a land without music. And although composers like Elgar and Holst have become more popular in Germany more recently, I mean, obviously, that when Simon Rattle was at the Berlin Philharmonic, but Kirill Petrenko, for example, has conducted Elgar. Daniel Barenboim has conducted a lot of Elgar with his orchestra in Berlin. But I think that the repertoire was less well known in the 1950s. And so anybody listening to it would have been struck, I think, by the continuities with the great German Romantic composers, which is why it had been so popular in the early part of the 20th century, not least with Richard Strauss, who was a great admirer of Elgar. So I think it's a combination of the orchestra was very good, that Sargent was well regarded, but also a lot of the music was less familiar, and the audiences actually found that they rather liked it.